In this, the third and final installment in our conversation with Dr. Alan Williams regarding direct marketing of grass-finished beef, we're going to talk to him about how to actually sell your grass-finished beef.
Never apologize for your prices, ever. Rather, what you do is you go in the offensive, and you say, you even acknowledge your prices. Somebody says, well, your prices seem high to me. You just simply say, they may appear so, but let me share with you why they're actually not. Let me share with you the attributes, what you're really getting here, what you're really paying for.
He will help us think about things like, what's the purpose of our website, actually?
If you think people are going to find you solely through Googling and accessing your website, think again. Think again. You've got lots and lots of competition. The website is not to bring in new customers. The website's to service existing customers.
All that and more on this episode 467 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Understanding Ag.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Hi, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag studios. Very excited to be joined once again by Dr. Alan Williams, and we have been talking to him not every time that we've had him on recently, but 3 of the last 4 or 2 of the last 3 times we've had him on, this being 3 of the last 4. We have talked to him about grass-finished beef. We talked to him about how do we select and raise it, how do we get it processed, and now we're going to talk about how we actually sell it. How do we market it? How do we actually get it to the customer? And lots of practical wisdom here to share with you. So looking forward to this conversation and sharing with you right after a word from our sponsor today, Understanding Ag. Are rising input costs keeping you up at night? At Understanding Ag, they help producers like you save money and build resilience through regenerative agriculture. Their team of experienced farmers and ranchers will show you how to reduce reliance on costly fertilizers, pesticides, and feed by working with nature, not against it. With proven regenerative practices, you can improve soil health, boost water retention, and increase your land's productivity while cutting expenses. From grazing plans to cover cropping to full system redesigns, they tailor solutions to your land and your goals. Let them help you make the transition from input-intensive, conventional, to profit-enhancing regenerative agriculture. Visit understandingag.com and take the first step toward a more profitable and sustainable future. Alan, thanks for joining me again on the Working Cows podcast. Welcome back.
It's a pleasure as always.
Well, we've been on a journey together, a 3-part series now. This will be the 3rd installment of a series on direct marketing beef. We started out with successful grass finishing. Then we talked about processing and about all that can go wrong and about how to make sure it doesn't go wrong in the processing phase. And now we're going to talk about how do we market it. We've got this beef back from the processor. We've spent all this time raising it. How do we sell it to somebody? That's the question, right?
Absolutely it is. And first and foremost, you need to know where to price it at. And that means that we've got to have a really good handle on all of our cost. The live animal production cost, the true value of that animal, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. As a live animal, transport costs to the plant, all of the processing and fabricating and further fabrication costs that we're going to have in that animal, transport back from the plant to your home farm or wherever you're going to store it. You've got cold storage costs that, utilities aren't free. So you've got cold storage cost. You've got labor involved in all of that. You have inventory management. You have things like your sales and marketing cost, your promotion cost, POS materials. We can keep going, but all of these are real. They're very real. And you've got to accurately and truthfully account for all of those costs to know how to properly price your product. And the one thing that I always warn people not to do, Clay, is don't price your product by going to everybody else's website and look at what they're charging, or going to a farmer's market or whatever, and then just slapping that price on your product. That may or may not be appropriate for you. So don't use other people. Yeah, it's good to look at other people's pricing to see, are you in the ballpark, right? And are you competitive? But don't never price based on other people's pricing. You, again, keep every penny of your cost of production all the way through, from conception all the way through that end product sitting in your cold storage. And then you know what it truly costs you on a per pound basis to get it to that point. Okay. Now you can begin to determine, what do I need to charge to break even? That's the first thing you do. Okay. What do I have to charge per pound to break even? Then you have to determine, what is your desired net margin? Is it 20%, 40%, 60%? What is it? Then that has to be added on top of that break even. But if you don't first determine break even, you're really missing the boat here. That has to be calculated. Then you can apply whatever percent net margin you want on top of that, and you're doing it accurately. But now the next problem, Clay, okay, is that I've determined the price, my break-even price per pound for the whole carcass, right? The whole carcass. And let's just, for sake of argument here, let's just say that's $8, okay? $8. So my break-even for the whole carcass is $8 per pound. Now, my rule of thumb is this: nothing gets sold below break-even, period. Nothing. And therefore, that's my absolute bottom, no matter what the item is out of the carcass, right? My absolute bottom. But I'm going to add a margin to that. So what do most people consider to be their cheapest item out of the whole beef carcass? Well, their hamburger, their grind, right? So I'm not going to sell my hamburger for $8 a pound. That's break even. Even though I may be selling my ribeyes for $24 a pound, my tenderloins for $35 a pound, and so forth, right? Don't sit here and think that, okay, because I'm selling these other items, these whole muscle cuts, for anywhere from maybe $15 a pound to over $30 a pound, that I'm okay at selling all the hamburger at break even. Never make that mistake, okay? You've got to have a net margin in every single item. You must do that. Now, once you do that, it allows you some latitude in the future to have some pricing discounts, some sales, some specials, that kind of thing. But we'll talk more about that later. But for right now, it's all about determining the carcass break even, then going to every individual cut, because out of a beef carcass, I can have a bunch of different cuts, right? I can have anywhere from 20 to over 50 different cuts or SKUs, right? And they're not all in the same proportion, and they're not all the same value. And therein lies another problem in our marketing of a beef carcass, is that we have to now take that into account. And most of the time, about half of everything you're going to get back from a beef carcass is going to be in the form of grind, that hamburger. And then the other half is going to be some type of whole muscle cut, whether it be the middle meats that we typically think of, like the ribeye, the New York strip, the tenderloin, the sirloin, or roast, or what we call the thins, the thin cuts like the flank steaks, the skirts, the culottes, the Denvers, the flat irons, all of those. Okay. So we've got to consider every carcass close to half is hamburger. So if that's the case, Clay, what should be my principal, primary, and first focus for marketing? Hamburger.
Yes.
Right? Hamburger, because that's half of what I'm getting back every time. And if I'm not really focusing on selling hamburger first, I'm really making a huge mistake. And unfortunately, I've seen people, Clay, make that mistake over and over and over again.
Yes.
Why? Because the middle meats are easy to sell. Okay. Very easy to sell. I mean, look, my youngest grandson is 2 years old. He could sell middle meats. Okay. Without even hardly trying. So anybody can sell middle meats. But Clay, middle meats are only 8% to at best 12% of a total carcass makeup, depending on how you fab it out, right? So, and on average, really closer to 8%. So what does that leave me with?
Yeah.
That leaves me with 92% of the rest of the carcass to sell. And it's so easy to sell middle meats, and there's so many people wanting those, I can sell myself out of those and then find myself trying to sell the rest of the carcass, and I'm in trouble because I have no middle meats to go with the other cuts, right? So then I have a harder time getting people to want the rest of that carcass. So I have to be thinking about that and considering that, in what I'm doing here.
Well, and this is partly,
Yep.
This is kind of dipping back into the processing, but this is kind of where your fabrication becomes important too, right?
Yeah.
You have to ask for the right things and not just leave it up to them. And some of those things that, you're going to, I don't know, this is a question. Do you educate your customer, or do you just grind some things? Like, some of those things that cuts they've never heard of. Are you better off just grinding them and selling them as hamburger, or would you say, I'm going to do some education and try to sell these for a little bit higher margin?
Right. And that's a very good question, Clay. And when people are first getting into this business, the direct marketing business, then what I advise them is not to go that route, to where you try to, take all of these different cuts or SKUs out of the carcass and educate that customer. What I advise them to do is have as few SKUs as possible, okay, as few cuts or items as possible. And let's fabricate the carcass very simply initially to principally cuts, whole muscle cuts and things like that the vast majority of customers or consumers are familiar with, right? And then the rest hamburger, because no matter what, you're still going to have to focus on developing your hamburger market first and foremost.
Okay.
So again, let's do that. Don't dilute your efforts, your sales and marketing efforts, by having way too many SKUs, way too many items or cuts that you've then got to spend a lot of time educating your customer on. Educate them on the value of ground beef.
Yeah.
Okay. And what a tremendous bargain it is and a tremendous value, and educate them on the unbelievable versatility of ground beef. If you're feeding a family, there is nothing better than ground beef. How many different dishes are there for ground beef? It's almost infinite, right?
And it's convenient. You can cook it from frozen, and it's not going to really affect the quality that much, unless you're sort of trying to make a hamburger or something. But like just to brown up some beef or taco meat or whatever, start from frozen, it's not going to change that much.
It's a quick meal, right? It's a quick meal. And so that's how I prefer to approach it. Let's, again, focus first and foremost on ground beef sales, selling every single pound of it and making it be the featured item, right? And look, now that we have phytonutrient testing available to us, take advantage of that, through Dr. Stefan Van Vliet's lab and all of that. I mean, let's take advantage of things like that, because that helps enormously to help them understand why they need to be buying your ground beef over grocery store ground beef, right? Because now they not only know who produced it and how they produced it, which is a huge benefit, but they also know the phytonutrient content of that, and that it's far healthier for their families. So take advantage of things like that, have it tested, and that way you can pass that phytonutrient information along to your customers as well. And I can tell you from personal experience, it absolutely matters. They do pay attention to that, and they react and respond very positively to that. So,
and then when it comes to marketing some of those
Yep.
less known cuts, this is where the farmers market and the Sam's Club approach comes in. You just stand there like Sam's Club and cook some up and have it on a toothpick and say, here, this is what this can be. I've got a few of these cuts. I'll throw them in with the ground beef for a few dollars extra, and this is how you cook them. And so you can start doing that, but at the same time, you're selling ground beef.
Yeah.
So
again, ground beef must be first and foremost, and we even, when we do farmers markets, we like to sample ground beef.
Yeah.
And very simple. We put a little bit of sea salt, a little bit of pepper on it, and that's it. Very simple seasoning. And just the ground beef, no condiments, no anything else, on toothpicks, right? And we'll take like 1 pound bricks and put them on the griddle, there at the farmer's market, and then just cook the entire 1 pound brick. We'll just take a spatula, flatten it out some, and then cut it into cubes and stick toothpicks in them and have people sample them. And it's very simple, very easy, but what's amazing is the response of the people sampling it. First and foremost, the aroma draws people into you, right? Which is exactly what you want to happen. But then secondly, when they sample it, they're like, oh my, this is really, really good. And even kids, that's what we have found. Kids that their parents have said they've never eaten a hamburger that hadn't been smothered in ketchup, mayo, whatever. And they're eating your ground beef just plain, and they're loving it. You want to draw in parents? You want them to buy your ground beef? Buy ground beef that the kids are going, oh, Mom and Dad, I love this. I want more. Let's go back around to that same place where they had that ground beef on a toothpick, and we've seen that work over and over. And again, even the kids just absolutely love it. So that type of thing works very well. And it's exactly as you said. But, again, sell your ground beef first. I can't emphasize that enough. I know I keep repeating it, but it's worth being repetitive about it. And then the sale and distribution of the rest of the carcass becomes much easier. Now let's look at a carcass here, okay, and then let's talk about how do we effectively market everything together in proportion. Okay.
I do want to say one thing though,
yes,
before we dive off into that what we're talking about here, where we figure out our break-even price on the whole carcass and then figure our net margin. This is what we're talking about when we say we're being a price maker, not a price taker. We are setting our price. We are selling it for what puts money in our pocket, pays our salary, and covers all the expenses.
Absolutely. And to that point, Clay, it's a very good point. And to that, one of the things I tell every client that we work with is never apologize for your prices, ever. Rather what you do is you go in the offensive, and you say, you even acknowledge your prices. If somebody says, well, your prices seem high to me, you just simply say, they may appear so, but let me share with you why they're actually not. Let me share with you the attributes, what you're really getting here, what you're really paying for. And here I have the phytonutrient data, and here I have all the information about the way we raise these animals and so forth, and all the benefits that come from that.
And in that conversation, you're not the victim. The animal is the hero.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You could stand there and whine about how hard you work, or you could say, these animals are grass-fed, phytonutrient rich, and just call the roll. And then
Yep.
That's a conversation that wins more friends than oh, we work so hard and it's so hard being a rancher. I don't think that's going to make you many friends or win you many customers.
It's not, and we never say that. And that's another very good point. We never talk about, well, we work really hard. You don't understand how many hours we have to put in, the sacrifices we have to make, da-da-da. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You're exactly right. They don't want to hear that because, you know what? Many of the people buying from you make sacrifices too, and they work hard too. So they don't want to hear you moan and groan and complain about being a rancher. So no, we never do that. Rather, what we do is we talk about the value attributes, and why it's important to the customer. Why we do what we do is important to you, because we're building ecosystem health, we're building climate health. We're producing a good environment. Our animals are very healthy. All of those types of things. And here's why they're healthy. Here's why they live a very good life, on our ranch. And
I think Paul Brown
by the way,
I think Paul Brown says one great life, one bad moment, or something like that.
Right, and we all have one bad moment, So yes, it's about playing up the value to the consumer. What do they want to hear? Tell them what they want to hear and what they need to hear, not what we think, because we're not selling to ourselves, we're selling to them. And so it is important to clearly communicate that value proposition and never apologize for your pricing. They got to understand they're buying something unique, something truly special, and they're paying for more than just a product to eat. Yeah, that's part of it. But their dollar is supporting a whole bunch of other really good things that benefit them and their families. Yeah. So learn what you need to communicate. And we obviously can help with that, because we've done it quite a bit. So don't hesitate to reach out, for ideas, thoughts, and concepts in doing this.
Certainly. Very good. Sorry, I think I interrupted you, but we're kind of talking about we've marketing the ground beef first, and then moving on from there.
So again, now we've got to look at. So we've got this carcass that is divided up into all of these different parts and pieces, right? And they're not of the same proportion, and they're not of the same value. So we have to factor all of that in to our final true net margin. What are we truly making out of this whole animal that we just produced? When I sell an egg, the chicken lays an egg, and I sell the egg. The truth is, that's the simplest thing we sell on the farm, Clay, right? Yeah. Because the chicken is producing a whole, and I'm selling the whole. And I don't have to do a whole lot to it, in the interim. But a cow, oh boy, they are so different because, again, as I said, we can break them down into 20 to more than 50 different parts and pieces or SKUs that I now have to sell. And therein lies our challenge. So again, what we do is we provide initial clients that are first getting into direct marketing with what I call a simplified cut sheet, okay, that is minimalist in terms of the total cuts that are produced out of that carcass. Now, even though it's minimal and it's a simplified cut sheet, I've still got different parts and pieces that are not of the same proportion, right? And I've got to determine how to properly price those and move those and sell those to a customer. So there's there are several different ways you can sell to a customer. You can allow the customer to order individual cuts and however much of each they want. As a direct marketer, that's not your wisest idea.
Because
Okay?
you'll be out of ribeyes tomorrow.
Right. You'll be out of fillets, you'll be out of ribeyes, you'll be out of New York strips, all of this really quickly.
You'll have flank steak and hamburger left.
Right. So that's not very wise. So for direct marketers, particularly just getting into this, I advise them never offer individual items. Okay. Rather, there's two principal ways they can go about selling the whole carcass in proportion. One is sell quarters, halves, and wholes. Okay. And so the customer is always buying either a quarter of a beef, a half of a beef, or a whole beef. And it's fairly easy to determine what to put in a quarter, what to put in a half, and a whole. Well, that's a whole. There's no problem there, giving them the whole. So what we do is, from the itemized cut sheet and the report back from the processor, we know how many of each item we have, right? And so for a quarter, it's pretty easy. I divide up steaks, roast, hamburger, all of that into a quarter each, and that's what you put in a quarter. So quarters, wholes, halves,
4 1/4, whatever.
Right. So quarters, wholes, halves are the easiest way to do this, right? The next is bundles, and even subscription bundles. And we like to move our customers towards being a subscriber to where they're just simply shipped a bundle every month, regardless. So that's just a given. They have a credit card on file with you, and every month you're shipping them a bundle. And the bundles allow me a lot of latitude, a lot of creativity, a lot of opportunity to be able to balance every carcass out and to get every part and piece sold well. What we do in a bundle is, we have different price bundles. So like a $50 bundle, a $100 bundle, a $200 bundle, that type of thing, right? And you could even have a super bundle, like a $500 bundle. So there's a lot of different options here, and it gives people on different budgets, a way to purchase a bundle. Now, typically in a bundle, we'll have usually around half of everything in a bundle is hamburger. Because again, half of your carcass is hamburger, right? So every bundle should be about 50% hamburger. Then we just tell them the rest of it is primal cuts. We don't let them pick and choose, okay? We determine what the primal cuts are. So that's a mix between your roast and all of the different types of steaks, whether it be the middle meat steaks, like the ribeye and the strip loin and the tenderloin, or whether it be the thins, like a flank, a skirt, a flat iron, petite tender, any of those types of things. So we determine the distribution of all of that. Or they may get some stew meat or some short ribs, things like that thrown in with the roast. So we determine the primal cuts. So that becomes their surprise each month, and customers learn to love that because they are getting something different to try different months. They're not quite sure they know they're going to get the hamburger. That's a given. So that's the consistency, right? That's the steadiness of it. But then the primal cuts are a mix and match of different things, different months. Now, in doing that, though, and you brought up a point earlier, Clay, that's critically important here. Many of these cuts, they may not be intimately familiar with, or they may not really know how to properly cook even a roast, right? So we make sure they're supplied with recipes. And we keep adding different recipes and different options for the same cuts, because we also want them to know these same cuts can be very versatile, right? I can prepare them a multiplicity of ways. So that gives you more menu options for feeding your family, which everybody wants. What we also do with those recipes is we tell them time of preparation from start to finish. Because what's most important to families today? You said it earlier. Time, convenience, right? How quickly can I prepare and easily can I prepare a meal for my family? So if it's a roast, then, hey, crock pot, right? Just, everybody's got these, or they got the Instapots, they got things like that nowadays. This makes it so easy. Put it in the morning before you go to work, turn it on. When you come home, you've got a meal. How hard is that? It took you 10 to 15 minutes in the morning to pre-prep it, get it in the crock pot or the Instapot, and then at the end of the day, your meal's ready. You can forget about it. It's there. If we're doing things like briskets and things like that, then put it on your smoker in the morning, right? And just leave it all day long. Set your temperature correctly. And again, in the evening, you got a whole brisket ready to eat. It's perfectly done. So we've got to let them know that. We've got to provide them with the instructions, the recipes, everything else.
Well, and there's an opportunity there for a marketing strategy that I can think of is start a YouTube channel on your ranch, and I would make it just a cooking channel, honestly, and just say, this week we're cooking this cut of meat, and then put that video in a link on a QR code and send it out with the beef subscription bundle. And so your YouTube channel is going to drive traffic to your marketing business, and then it's also a customer service piece where they've got a video of somebody cooking this exact cut and how they're going to do it.
Absolutely, that is definitely the case, and and for a lot of the steaks that people are far less familiar with, again, things like the Denvers and the Flatirons and the skirts and the flanks and culottes and so forth, we provide recipes for them and definitely let them know how quickly these items can be prepared. Oftentimes, 15, 20 minutes. And, either on a griddle, on a grill, or even in a cast iron skillet, all of these types of things on a stovetop. You can have those prepared very, very quickly, and they're very versatile. So I can serve them as a whole steak, right, in lieu of a ribeye or a New York strip, something like that. Or I can take them and I can slice them, and I can use them for fajitas. I can use them for burritos. I can use them for tacos. I can use them for a stir fry. I mean, there's a whole host of options here for these thin cuts, those steaks and the beautiful thing about a lot of those steaks we call thins is that they are very robustly flavored. They actually can be excellent. And people love them once they learn how to prepare them and the versatility of them, what all they can do in terms of ways that they can serve them and different meal options for the exact same cut. One of the cuts that I really love, we call it a chuck eye steak, but they're also known as Delmonico's. There's a whole host, a chuck roll steak. There's a whole host of names, but what not a lot of people realize is that in the top portion of that chuck, that shoulder, that's really the very beginning of the ribeye, okay, that extends through what we formally call the ribeye, behind the shoulder. and it's the same muscle. It's the longissimus muscle that runs through there, and it has those very nice cap muscles that are the multifidus and the spinalis muscles, but that people call the cap muscles. And the cap muscles are even larger and more a part of that steak in the chuck roll, that top part of the chuck. And to me, I would rather have that than a true ribeye steak any day of the week. Those cap muscles are always tender, super tender. And the chuck is the most heavily marbled portion of the entire carcass. What a lot of people may not realize is that animals deposit more marbling from the front end compared to the back end. You get less and less marbling in the muscle cuts as you go to the rear of the animal, that hind quarter, that rump, and all of that, versus the chuck. So almost every cut from the chuck is very, very well marbled. And again, you get less and less marbling as you work your way back. So you've got to think about that. And so that makes, for me, all these cuts and items from the chuck highly desirous.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Understanding Ag. As farmers and ranchers, we've all heard pitches from ag consultants about the next great new product that will increase our yields, pounds, or animal performance. And each of those silver bullets comes with a price tag that you pay year after year, taking more money out of your pockets and putting it into someone else's. Our friends at Understanding Ag aren't out to sell you anything, but the knowledge to grow healthier soils, plants, animals, and profits. Their goal is to help you become your own best manager, a short-term client, but a long-term friend and partner on the road to regeneration. If you're still waiting for that next year that's going to be better, maybe it's time you give Understanding Ag a call. Check them out at understandingag.com. I know you'll be glad you did. We covered some good territory here. Let's talk about some of the ways that we, maybe go about actually communicating, finding customers, opening the front door so people know we're in business, some of those kinds of things.
Yeah. So, obviously there's a number of ways that you can do this. You need a good website, and there's a lot of advice for a website. Less is more. Don't try to be verbose from a narrative or textual standpoint. Way too many people make that mistake. People are only going to read so much, Clay. Okay, so don't try to tell them your life story and all of this other stuff. What
Pictures
works
worth
best?
1,000 words.
Exactly. But high quality pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on your website, no fuzzy pictures, all high resolution pictures, never a fuzzy picture, and really good, well made videos also, but short and sweet. Okay. 30 seconds or less, no verbose videos. So, you can put both of those on your website. They're both very good, and work in bullet points on your website. And I tell people groups of 3, okay? People can digest 3 bullet point emphasis, okay? And they can remember that, but don't have 5, 8, 10 bullet points for anything. They won't remember, they'll only remember 3. Okay, so break it into groups of bullet points, the things that you want to emphasize, 3 per emphasis. Okay, and again, they can remember all of that. You've got to have an excellent online store platform. It's got to be really user-friendly, really intuitive, and easy for them to use your online store platform. If it's not, what you're going to find is you have a lot of carts that are partially full that they never complete the sale on. And you're going to wonder why. If that's the case, is people are very used to buying online now. So it's not that they don't know how to do this. If you've got unsold carts sitting there, it's because it is too difficult, and you have put in too many layers, too many steps for them to complete that sale.
Yeah. And
So,
I think a big part of that is
yep.
knowing your customer,
Yes.
who are you selling to? And, we've all been at points in our life when we had to live on a tighter budget than others.
Yeah.
Right. But some people are not your customer.
Right.
You just have to recognize that some people aren't your customer, and there are certain people who are, and understand what their life is like. How much time do they have to prep a meal? How much time do they have to do all these things? And then put yourself in their shoes and sell to them, not to yourself for sure, and not to somebody else.
Exactly. It is very important that we do just that. So you do have to recognize your customer, their demographics, all of that, and target your marketing towards them. The other thing that you need to be aware of on a website is that even your colors matter. Okay, it's got to pop, and it's got to be pleasing to the eye for people. So again, the critical things are high resolution pictures, short, very well made videos where the audio is clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't shoot videos on windy days, things like that. You won't, and don't have a lot of background noise. Groups of 3 bullet points. Just remember groups of 3 bullet points, boom, boom, boom. And very streamlined online store platform with the fewest steps as possible. And again, preferably just 3 steps to buy. Okay. Just 3 steps to buy and complete that purchase. So again, everything in groups of 3. There are, designers out there that can help, like Gray's Cart, Barn to Door, and others that, that do this professionally, that can help you in a good website design. And developing a good online store platform, or you can do your own if you have that skill set through Shopify, things like that. So there are options out there for doing a good website and a good online store platform. The second, though, Clay, is that, and this goes back to knowing who your customer is. You're a direct marketer. You're one farm, one ranch. Don't try to sell nationally. Why are you doing that? And I see way too many that gear up, I'm going to ship nationally. Why? Concentrate on a radius around your farm, your ranch. That's your target market area and your target demographics. And saturate that. You'll never saturate that.
Yeah.
For instance, the vast majority of our sales are within a 100-mile radius of the farm.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and so we talked about know and understand your customer. This is know and understand yourself.
Yeah.
And most people that are drawn to direct marketing, they've heard from Gabe and they've heard from Joel Salatin and they've heard from you, and they think, well, I'm going to be Gabe and Joel and Alan today. No, you're not. It's going to take years and decades to develop that market, just like it took them years and decades to develop that market, right?
And we don't sell nationwide. Like I said, the vast majority of our sales are within a 100-mile radius, and that's what we focus on. And that allows us more options in terms of how we can service that customer. So what I advise most people to do, if you're going to ship, if you're going to ship product, then do 1-day radius only, ground ship, 1-day ground ship radius, and that's going to be your market area. That makes it so much easier, whether you're shipping UPS, FedEx, DHS, or whoever else. That makes it so much easier. It means you can use far less insulation, dry ice, all of these other types of things, because it's just a 1-day ground ship. So you can lower your cost of materials. You can lower your cost of shipping to the customer, which is very good. And you lower all the things that can go wrong because it's just a one-day ground ship radius. So I highly, highly recommend that. But the other thing that a smaller radius allows us to do is we do a lot of direct delivery to our customers. So we deliver ourselves. That alleviates all the cost of the shipping materials and packaging and that kind of thing. And I know that the customer got the product, and got it in good shape because we were responsible for delivering the product. And what's the other benefit of that versus shipping, Clay? Well, that gives me more direct contact and communication with my customer, because when we deliver to their home or to the restaurant, wherever the case may be, then what are we doing? We're interacting yet again with that customer. And that's critically important. The more points of interaction and communication personally, face to face, you can have with that customer, the more loyal and dedicated that customer is going to be because they trust you more. Okay. And so I want as many points of direct face to face contact, personal contact, as I can possibly get. And it also allows us to learn a lot more about our customers, and they can ask us more questions, right? And it allows us to share what's new at the farm, what's going on, and all of those types of things. And as I deliver a bundle, as an example, then I can share with them, hey, we've got some brand new recipes inside the box here that you need to try. Let me tell you about one or two, and let me share with you what's in this bundle, that I think is going to really get you excited about this. So I love having that small radius that allows us to have those more personal face-to-face points of contact with that customer. And again, this works whether I'm delivering direct to an individual to their home, whether we're delivering to our restaurant customers or we're delivering to our store customers. That us delivering really matters. It matters a lot.
And those in-person contacts are super valuable, because if one person is willing to say one thing to you face to face, there are many more who are thinking it, who aren't taking the time to communicate to you. And so I would really highly value those communications.
Yes, and that's another very important point, and that is always true. If you hear something from 1, 2, or 3 customers, you can absolutely guarantee that others are thinking the same thing, either good or bad, right? The other thing that this personal contact allows is if anything did go wrong in any way, I can immediately hear about it, correct it, and that's what we do. We never, ever make an excuse, ever. Never make an excuse to a customer. If anything goes wrong, own it and immediately say, okay, you know what? Here's some free items, or here's a free bundle, $50 bundle or whatever, right?
What percentage of your total animal would you budget per animal for that kind of thing?
That's a very good point. I would say, 5% or so. If you're doing a very good job, then you don't have very many issues. If you've got a good processor, and we talked about that on the last podcast and how important that is, but if you've got a good processor doing a great job, then you're good to go there. So then the next thing is you making sure you never compromise the product yourself, right? And that you never compromise the packaging of that product and the way you handle it, and that you get the orders right. That's another place that we can go wrong, right? Is that we mess up the order. We don't give them the right items that they ordered or the right numbers of those items. So this is where your inventory system really matters. You've got to have an excellent inventory system, really good tracking, so that every order that comes in, you're getting it right. And the other thing that I recommend is a triple check on every order. So you pack the order, you go down and you check off the items that are supposed to be in that order. Then you look at it again and you check it again, and you look at it a third time and you check it again. Triple check every order to make sure it is truly correct. And if you do those things, you're rarely going to have any issues.
So what is generally, or in your experience, what's the front door? In church world, we talk about the front door of your church is somebody else interacted with somebody who attends your church, or somebody Googled your church and found your website. How are people making that first contact with you most often?
Yeah. the website is not for the first contact. The website is to service your customers. Do y'all know how many websites are out there for direct marketers? I mean, really? If you think people are going to find you solely through Googling and accessing your website, think again. Think again. You've got lots and lots of competition, okay? And you're going to be buried, at least initially. Your website's going to be buried on page 8, 10, whatever, and nobody's going to scroll through that many, right? So the website is not to bring in new customers. The website's to service existing customers, okay? So your point is, how do you build that new customer base? All right, well, first and foremost, family and friends, okay? Never neglect that. Do you know people?
Yep.
Do you know people? Well, approach them personally, face to face. Hey, I'm going to be selling my beef now. Are you interested? Here's what I can provide to you. So family and friends, always start there, personal. And guess what? If you've got excellent product, excellent service, all of this, they're going to help you with organic growth. Because why? They're going to talk to other people themselves. And then those other people are going to come to you. So never discount organic growth. It matters. It's real. And it can grow you quicker than you think. The next is things like farmers markets, okay? So pick one or two really good farmers markets and don't sell at the farmers market thinking you're going to sell all of your product at a farmers market. You're not, okay? That's pretty rare. You got to have a really good farmers market to accomplish that with thousands and thousands of people coming through. Rather, the farmers market is for added exposure so people know you. So have an excellent setup at the farmers market. Look professional, act professional, have really good banners and signage, okay, professionally done with excellent pictures, okay? So your banners, your signage,
not
all
some
of that.
Walmart stock photo family.
Right. It needs to be pictures from your farm, your ranch, your product, but all high resolution, all very well done, right? And I like to even have a monitor up there with a short looping video playing, okay, of the farm, right? So have a short little video playing that people can see. And then have excellent POS material on your table. And I even like to display product, okay? So I'll sacrifice a steak or a 1 pound hamburger brick or whatever, having it sitting there so people can literally see your product. And then, of course, that becomes my lunch or dinner for that day, right? And that's okay. So, but I like to have product out there. If it's a farmer's market where you can cook and sample. Always cook and sample. The aroma draws people in, as we said earlier, and they get to taste your product. That's the very best way, Clay, to sell food is to put food in people's mouths. Okay? So never neglect that. And then have your offerings, your signage for your offerings very clear, very evident, and your pricing very clear and evident at the farmer's market. And the other thing that you do at a farmer's market, Clay, don't sit, I see way too many people doing this. They sit behind their table like a bump on a log, okay?
Scrolling on their phone.
Yeah, and they don't acknowledge the people walking by, nothing. They just assume somebody's going to stop and buy because I'm there, okay? No, you speak to every single person that walks by. You speak to them. Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. How are you doing today? Great to see you.
Ground beef?
Exactly. And we have, and again, when you're cooking and sampling, we're like, hey, would you like a free sample? So we have the grill out front of the table, right? And we have somebody stationed right there doing the cooking and all of that, and they're stopping everybody. Would you like a sample? Would you like a sample? Okay, don't hesitate to do that. And then we'll have a little flyer, or a little brochure, very simple. And we'll just have somebody, that's their job. They're out in front as people are coming by, right? And everybody gets one. Everybody gets one, no matter what, whether they want to stop and ask more questions or not, it doesn't matter. They all get one. So speak to everybody. Greet them in a very friendly manner. That's so important. And again, I've watched, like at farmers markets, I've watched all our neighbors around us that just sit there and they never greet the people or anything. And I'm like, I thought you were here to sell, right? You don't sell by being quiet. You sell by making noise, by letting people know you exist, by letting people know you're there and that you've got something really unique and good. So, and be aware of the farmer's market and who your potential competition may be that's doing something very similar to you, okay? And be prepared to have clear points of differentiation that set you apart from all of your other competition. Do that. So farmers markets. The other way is just, if you're going to sell to stores and restaurants as well, like we do, then get out there and go to them. They're not going to find you. You got to go to them. So go to the restaurants, go to the stores, and talk to the decision makers. But when you go, carry really good POS material and actual samples of your product. Never go without a sample of your product, and give them a little sample box, okay? Make the boxes really attractive, the packaging really attractive, so that you look professional. You look like you know what you're doing. Even if you don't, you got to at least look like you know what you're doing, right? And hand them the sample. Say, I want you to try this, okay? And leave them with your full contact information, everything else. Now, here's the beauty of leaving somebody with a sample, Clay. That gives you the open door to go back and see them again, right? Because you left a sample. And the expectation is you're going to contact them again to see how they liked it, right? So that's exactly what you got to do. You got to follow up, go back. Well, how'd you like the steaks and the hamburger that I left you, right? What did you think about it? All of that. So that opens the door more. We've gotten a lot of business with stores and restaurants that way, by doing that. And then for, again, individual direct to consumer, we've mentioned a couple of ways: friends and family, farmers market, all of that. Social media, okay? Social media is critically important. Again, the website services the existing customer but doesn't gain you new customers. Social media gains you new customers. But again, on social media, Clay, short, sweet, to the point content, bullet pointed, if it's text, high resolution, attractive pictures, short, sweet, high quality video. Okay. That's critical. And use all the forms of social media that people are using out there. So that means you are going to have to use multiple platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, TikTok, but use the forms of media that everybody else is using to reach them. Now, another way to reach people, and again, this is very personal, like you and I, we have church families, okay? Well, by golly, they're potential customers too. Yeah. And you know what? They need good food, just like everybody else does. So I'll reach out to my church family, and let them know about it. And they often greatly appreciate that. They're not put off by it. I reach out to people that I work with in other sectors, so again, go through, nowadays we don't have a literal Rolodex, right? But go through your smartphone Rolodex and just start letting people know. And then you can also do things like, mail flyers, email list, those types of things. And you can buy those to where you can you can buy those that are targeted to very specific demographics. So I can have emails that are sent only to targeted demographics. I can have mail flyers, hard mail flyers, that are sent only to targeted demographics. So that's another way to begin to reach people. So all of these are very valuable, and you should take advantage of each of these, to be able to build that initial customer base.
And I have yet to talk to a direct marketer, so I'm just going to say it's true that tell me anything other than the fact that email drives sales. So you get people on the email list, they're already at least interested, right? And then when you send that email, I even was doing an interview with a guy one time about direct marketing, and he said, I scheduled an email to go out during this interview. And he held up his phone and said, here's a $375 order that came in while we were on this interview from the email that went out while we were on this interview. So it was that fast of a turnaround. So I think I undersell email because I don't see how it works on me necessarily, but it works on a big enough portion of the population that it is something that you don't want to neglect.
That's exactly correct. And that also means that every time you make a sale through some other means, make sure you're capturing all of their contact information, their phone numbers, their email address, all of that, and their social media, addresses, whatever. But capture those. So if you're at a farmer's market, you want to capture that information from people when you make a sale to them. And that allows us to then be able to get more social media targeted to them, emails that are targeted to them. And you're exactly right. When somebody gets an email, it's just simply a reminder, hey, we're here. We have excellent product. Here's our specials for the week or for the month. Here's something new. Here's something unique. It's a way to keep them informed and keep you in front of them. And you do find that many of them over time become steady customers. They begin to buy from you more and more, and they begin themselves to look forward to receiving that email as a reminder from you.
Yeah. So I got a few questions here kind of that I'd like to go through as we point towards wrapping up. And the first one is, markets are incredibly high right now, just on the commodity side for beef. Would you recommend, or do you personally sell less direct market when the market's high like this? Or how do you think about that?
Okay, that's a very good question. And my answer to that is no, because I don't want to lose customers. And I don't want those customers to think that I can no longer service them. Because guess what? Prices are going to come back down. And if I'm shunting more of my production to just selling into a market high as a live animal, then I'm having to cut customers to do that. And I'm never going to do that. So I'm going to stick through it because I know I've lived through multiple cattle price cycles now, Clay. And guess what? The prices always come back down. Always. Right. Okay, so for anybody, and look, I'll just say it flat out, for anybody in the beef industry to think prices won't come back down, you're wrong, period. You're flat out wrong.
No doubt. And I think that, would you say it's true then that your prices are fairly consistent? Like you're not raising prices when the cattle cycle goes up, right?
We try very hard not to raise prices, and we only do it when we absolutely have to. And if we get an opportunity to lower prices again, we do. We want to treat our customers fairly.
But that's why that point of where we started is so important. You got to figure your costs and what's profitable, what is actually paying my salary and helping me to have money to put away after I've paid myself. And then that money is what I use to grow the business.
Yep. Absolutely correct. So yes, we're going to stick with it. We're going to continue to sell directly because we don't want to lose that customer base. We want to continue to grow it in every possible way that we can. And the price cycle is just simply the price cycle. Now, I'm looking forward, and we already saw some softening this week, okay? And the truth is, I've been looking forward to some softening. And boy, I'm going to have some ranchers mad at me now for saying that. But golly, we can't keep this going on or we're going to lose our consumer market base. They will switch to other cheaper proteins and it doesn't matter then. Prices are going to come back down one way or the other, period. But we're already seeing dynamics shape up to begin to put downward price pressure, and we saw that yesterday. And
how
there were some
fragile
people.
is that market? It only takes one tweet, and you can impact the prices. So
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
marketing thing is a
unbelievably
lot more
fragile.
work, but it's also a lot more stable.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. So I actually have been looking forward to a decrease in prices because that allows me to be, more competitive with my customer base and to give them a better deal, while still making a good margin. So, I welcome that, and it will sell more beef.
Yep. So then the other thing is, I don't know that I've talked to somebody who's direct marketing multiple proteins that has told me anything other than the fact that beef is the least profitable of all the proteins they market. And so how do you think about that? I know we're on the Working Cows podcast, but this is a ranch business podcast that's about making profitable ranches. So if we can market eggs and other things cheaper or more profitably, I should say, we should definitely look at that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, eggs are probably our most profitable item. I really like eggs. And so, we maintain quite a few laying hens and are even expanding that further. And, and as I said earlier in the podcast, eggs are pretty darn easy to sell because I'm producing a whole and selling a whole, and I don't have a lot of steps in between that. So, broilers can be profitable. Now you got to really watch your cost on them and your processing costs, but broilers can be quite profitable, and an excellent seller. And of course we're selling lamb and pastured pork as well. And, we have great markets for those. I would say, our beef, pork, and lamb are probably about equally profitable. I wouldn't say that one is significantly more profitable than the other. So we like both of those, but certainly the poultry can be significantly more profitable on a per unit basis, but they're an excellent add-in. Almost anybody that does cattle can have poultry, and it's pretty darn easy. I mean, everybody could be running 500 to 1,000 laying hens without any problem at all, and their kids can manage the hens pretty much.
And I do think that there's definitely something to be said for focusing on one thing and doing it excellently. And then when you can, you got to walk before you can run. When you can do that excellently, when you can walk and chew gum at the same time, then you can add that other enterprise in. And maybe it is that opportunity to bring Junior back to the ranch or get the kids started on some entrepreneurial activity when they're in high school or whatever. So,
my mom told me when I was a kid about this walking and chewing gum at the same time, and I've yet to be able to achieve that, Clay, and I'm 65 now, so I don't know about that. I don't know if that's true or not, that you can do them both at the same time. But no, all kidding aside, you're absolutely right. And, get really good at one thing, learn how to market it well, how to handle the inventory, everything else. And then it makes it a whole lot easier to layer in the other proteins. And you're not having to build a brand new customer base, right? The same people that have been buying your beef will now buy your chicken, your eggs, your pork, your lamb, whatever else you're layering in. So you've already got a ready-made customer base for those products. But it will attract additional customers because now you've got more to offer. And all of your orders, your typical order will increase in size because now that they know they can buy more than beef, they're going to add on other items, just like we typically do at the grocery store. How many people go to the grocery store with a list, but almost always buy more than what's on the list?
That's where grocery stores make their money, on the things that weren't on your list.
Absolutely.
So, and then another thing that comes to mind is marketing offal. Don't leave that at the processor, right? Don't just say you can keep all that. Take everything you can, right?
So, very good point. So, we do that through a multiplicity of ways. So, offal, absolutely, organ meats, that kind of thing. So, we do an ancestral burger is one of the ways that we use it. Okay. And that's an excellent way to get the super dense nutrition of organ meats into our kids' diets and even adult diets without them really knowing they're eating organ meats, right? The ancestral burger, because you can't hardly taste it. For hours, it's somewhere between 10 and 20%, depending on the blend of organ meats. So, it allows you
that are getting put in there just for future reference.
Yep. So the organs that we typically put in are heart, liver, kidney, and and they are the most nutrient dense food known to humankind. Okay, they really are. And if you can infuse them into like an ancestral burger and that kind of thing, then people will readily eat it. And as a matter of fact, I love the additional robustness of flavor that it adds, and I would far rather eat an ancestral burger than our regular hamburger. They just taste better to me. But you don't get that off-whing flavor or anything like that. We also do a pet food blend that includes organ meats, regular trim, high fat, so we get to use a lot more of our fat that otherwise wouldn't be used and sold. And oh, by the way, we have higher fat in the ancestral burger that we do as well to use more fat. And we also we grind bone, okay? So we put the ground bone into the pet food, and that's putting bone and marrow and all of that. So it's a super nutrient-dense, phytonutrient-rich pet food that is outstanding for your pets. And now you have to be careful with this. You have to call it a pet food supplement and not a pet food, because there is a pet food association, and they're going to require you to call it a complete pet food. You've got to, believe it or not, you've got to actually add in grains and vegetables and that kind of thing as well. So make sure you label it correctly as a pet food supplement and not a pet food. Now, but here's our sneaky little, but also totally legit marketing angle on that. That exact same product, Clay, that we market as pet food, we market it as a nutrient bomb to people because we can eat it. And it's got everything. It's power packed. It's got organ meats. It's got the fat. It's got the lean trim, and it's got bone marrow. What is not to like in that? It truly is a nutrient bomb for us. I love them. I eat them often with my eggs for breakfast rather than a regular breakfast sausage. I eat one of those nutrient bomb patties for breakfast, and we make them about the size of a breakfast sausage, okay, patty. So we market them both ways, both to pets and to humans, okay? They're just called a pet food supplement to pets, and they're called a nutrient bomb for humans. Market your bones. So we have all of our bones, cut up, and we market those to people to do bone broth and marrow bones and that kind of thing, but also for pets. You can smoke these bones, cut them in 6-inch lengths and 3-inch lengths and that kind of thing and smoke them. Pets absolutely go crazy for them. So use all the bone, and I can use the leg bone, I can use the ribs, I can use vertebrae, neck bone, all of these types of things, are eligible for that. So save your organ meats, put them into products like I just described, save your bone and sell them to both humans and as pet food treats, pet treats, and then use more of your fat, So again, doing things like the Ancestral Burger, where I can put a higher fat content in it, doing the pet food supplements and nutrient bombs, where I have a higher fat content, doing all beef hot dogs with a higher fat content, allows me to use more fat, and then beef tallow. What's hotter on the market out there than beef tallow, right? I mean, Clay, we're even smearing it on our faces now, right? Men are doing this, smearing beef tallow on their faces to make them more youthful. So beef tallow has a lot of value now. Bone broth has a lot of value. So both the beef tallow and the bone broth market have expanded to multi-billion-dollar-a-year businesses. So save your beef tallow, and beef tallow is absolutely valuable for both cooking and for human skincare. So you have dual uses for beef tallow. So never neglect the drop, what's called the drop from the carcass. That's tons and tons of added value that you can absolutely sell to your customer base.
Would you outsource any of that? Like, would you just say, hey, I'll take the tallow and the bones and then go find somebody who wants to turn them into pet treats?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't even hesitate, because for instance, we would take more of that. All right. Because the demand for them is so good. If there's other direct marketers out there, y'all hear me? If there's other direct marketers out there that don't want your bone or your beef tallow or whatever, give me a call and we'll talk about it, because, if you're not too far away and the transport cost isn't going to kill me, then I'd be very interested in it, because it's easy to sell and we need more of it. And we've even recently added a food truck. And so we're using beef tallow, everything like our fries that we're cooking and things like that we're cooking, that we're frying out of the beef truck. We're using beef tallow to do that with, grass-fed beef tallow rather than vegetable oil and seed oil. So it takes a lot to do that. So we want that. And we do have people that want it as, a skin cream, a facial cream, and that type of thing. So, yeah, we can use a lot of beef tallow and a lot of bone.
Yep. Very good. And I see I've used up more than the time I asked for, but I do want to ask one last question about what would you outsource? I mean, and there's lots of things in this chain you can outsource, even like heifer development or you can buy in backgrounded calves to grass finish or whatever. What are some examples of things that you would and wouldn't outsource in this?
So yes, you can obviously outsource product, and oftentimes we work with other marketers. If we're short on something and they're long on something, we'll do some swaps with them, right? And so it's really good to work with other marketers to help balance all of our product. And so I highly advise that, connecting with others to do some swapping of product and that type of thing that you're long and short on. Or if they don't have a market for, or don't want to develop markets for bone broth, marrow, that kind of thing, like we just talked about. But in terms of on the live animal side, then yes, you can outsource heifer development. You can outsource your feeders, so often, to help augment, we'll buy feeders, qualified feeders, from people that we know exactly how they're raised. So, and there's direct marketers that'll buy qualified fats, when their market expands quickly and they need fats that they can harvest right away. They'll outsource the fats, or they'll outsource the feeders and the heavy feeders. Do that, because there's a lot of producers that don't want to carry them all the way to finish, but they do want to carry them a little further. And then because they have excess grass, because they're adaptively grazing, all of this. So that allows the opportunity to be able to buy heavy feeders, that I can then take and finish out in a relatively short turn and turn my money, turn my cash from that fairly quickly. So, inside of 6 months, right? So I love to be able to tap into supplies of heavy feeder cattle And most grass finishers that do it at any kind of scale, they're always looking for those qualified feeders because they would far, far rather start there than start with a 5 weight, right? To carry them all the way to finish. So if you're a cow calf producer and you're carrying a lot of your calves to yearling, I'm going to tell you there's some really good market opportunity to market to grass fed finishers, that are looking for those yearlings like that. So that it creates opportunity up and down the supply chain, right? The other thing that I encourage people to share knowledge about and information about is their processors and their processing. We all have to have that processing capability. So definitely take advantage of that and share with others, because what we are seeing among more and more processors right now is that many of them have built out additional capacity and they're actually looking for more animals, to slaughter and fabricate. So share that information among yourselves and share information about better packaging options, those types of things, better shipping options. Don't view everybody as your competitor. View it as a rising tide lifts all boats. Share what's going well for you, what's not going so well for you, so that all of us are better at what we do.
Yeah. And the other, I was thinking about, like, could we outsource the marketing? But really, you and I have spent 4 hours talking about this subject over the last few months, and so there's obviously a lot there, and we've honestly left a lot on the table in the conversation. But what this represents, or what it could represent, is, hey, this is the opportunity to bring your wife home from the off-farm job. This is the opportunity to bring on the next generation, because it really probably does demand full-time attention to select the animals that are going to go to finish, to make sure they're finished right, to make sure they're processed right, and then to make sure they're marketed right. It probably does demand that level of attention. And so look at it that way, maybe as that kind of an opportunity rather than what can I outsource, because nobody knows your story as well as you do. And that's really what sets your product apart from other products, is your story.
Absolutely. And then you got people like, Seven Sons, the Hitsfields that, started, as an individual farm, marketing from the individual farm. And now today they have morphed into, they've got, golly, well north of 50 farms that are supplying them and are a part of the Seven Sons program, but aren't having to do all the processing and marketing and all of that themselves. And they're north of 20 million a year in sales now. So, as a branded program. So there's more and more of those opportunities that are emerging, so that if there are producers out there that, and they're saying, hey, I'm not sure I want to be a direct marketer myself and do all of it. But are there branded programs that I can participate in that I can do a better job, that will pay me for, adaptive grazing, regenerative principles and practices that I'm doing, and giving me more opportunity and latitude? Yes, those are growing as well. So, for both opportunities, take a strong look at them, because they're very real. And they do exist.
Yeah, just like you said, if you're already taking those yearlings all the way to being a yearling on grass, there's people that are looking for them. So
yeah,
very good. Alan, anything major that we needed to touch on here today before I let you go?
We've covered a lot of ground, and like I said, there's always much more that can be said. But once again, for anybody that's seeking more information, feel free to reach out to me at any point. Email me, give me a call, text me, whatever, and or contact me via social media. I'd be very happy to share with you the things that we know and have experienced, and to help you on your journey.
All right, Alan, thank you so much for your time today.
You bet. Thanks, Clay, as always.
Very good stuff there with Alan. Always appreciate his thoroughness and his experience and ability to share his wisdom on so many different topics, including this one. direct marketing, grass-finished beef, and other products. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, we will be talking to Joel Salatin. Going to share with you a conversation that I had with Joel about some of the regulatory issues that we're facing in agriculture in America, some of the market pressures that we're facing in agriculture, the soybean market, the corn market, the cattle market, how all those things are fitting together and how they're related and how they can help some people be able to make better decisions going forward. And one of the things that I wanted to have Joel on to talk about, and it's related to some of the things that are a part of that discussion, is that we're going to have a Rogue Food Conference in Rapid City, South Dakota, February 6th and 7th at the First Baptist Church in Rapid City. We'll be hosting the Rogue Food Conference. Joel Salatin, John Moody, other guests, people coming to speak, keep people coming to share. Looking forward to a great conference. So if you are able to, I'd ask you to put it on your calendar, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you at the Rogue Food Conference, February 6th and 7th in Rapid City, South Dakota.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.